The massive hall fell silent as the final vote was counted. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the human delegation table, her hands clenched so tight her knuckles turned white. Around her, representatives from 47 different alien species watched with various expressions of satisfaction, relief, and barely hidden disgust. The Veltar speaker, a tall creature with blue-green skin and 4 arms, raised his staff. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. The Galactic Council has reached its decision. By a vote of 43-4, humanity is expelled from this alliance effective immediately. Sarah felt her heart sink. 15 years. 15 years of careful diplomacy, of proving humanity belonged among the stars. And it all came down to this moment. She looked across the vast chamber at species she had considered friends. The Cathari delegation avoided her eyes. The Zephyrians actually seemed pleased. Only the Altarians looked sad about the decision. Admiral Marcus Rivera, Earth's military representative, sat beside her with his face like stone. His gray hair was perfectly neat, his uniform spotless, but Sarah could see the anger burning in his dark eyes. Behind them, the rest of the human delegation sat in shocked silence. The Veltar speaker continued. The charges against humanity are clear and proven. First, excessive aggression in all military encounters. Second, reckless advancement of dangerous technologies without proper approval. Third, the possession of evolutionary traits incompatible with peaceful galactic civilization. Sarah wanted to scream. Excessive aggression? Humanity had only fought when attacked first. They had never started a single conflict. But somehow, the fact that humans won those fights quickly and completely made other species nervous. They called human tactics brutal and unconventional. Sarah called them effective. The technology charges were even more unfair. Yes, humans learned fast. Yes, they improved on alien designs. But wasn't that supposed to be a good thing? When the Mordak had shared their fusion drive technology, human engineers had made it 30% more efficient within 6 months. When the Veltar had shown them their communication systems, humans had created versions that worked twice as fast and used half the power. Every improvement humanity made seemed to frighten the Council more. They whispered about humans in the corridors, calling them dangerous and unpredictable. They said humans thought too fast, adapted too quickly, and refused to follow proper procedures. The speaker's next words hit like physical blows. Furthermore, humanity has demonstrated a disturbing pattern of reverse engineering and improving upon shared technologies at rates that violate all known scientific principles. Their artificial intelligence systems exceed safety parameters established over millennia. Their military innovations show a concerning focus on efficiency over restraint. Admiral Rivera finally stood up. His voice was calm, but Sarah could hear the steel underneath. If the Council is finished with its accusations, perhaps someone could explain what exactly we did wrong. We followed every treaty. We respected every boundary. We shared our discoveries freely. A ripple of uncomfortable sounds swept through the chamber. The Cathari representative, a being that looked like a cross between a spider and a tree, clicked its mandibles nervously. You shared your discoveries, yes. But you also changed everything you touched. Your improvements to our technologies were so significant that our own scientists could no longer understand their own inventions. The Zephyrian delegate, floating in her hover chair, spoke with a voice like wind chimes. Your species learns too quickly. In 15 years you have mastered technologies that took us centuries to develop. You have created new weapons, new drives, new computers that make our greatest achievements look primitive. This is not natural. Sarah found her voice at last. Not natural? We're curious. We like to build things. We like to make things better. Since when is that a crime? The Veltar speaker's 4 eyes fixed on her. It is not a crime, Ambassador Chen. But it is dangerous. Your species has shown that it cannot be contained by normal limits. You push against every boundary, question every rule, improve every system you encounter. Where will it end? Admiral Rivera stepped forward. It ends with a better galaxy for everyone. The fusion drives we improved have made trade routes 40% more efficient. Our AI systems have helped solve problems that stumped Council scientists for generations. Our medical advances have saved millions of lives across dozens of species. And your military advances, the speaker replied coldly, have created weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Your ships are now faster and stronger than anything in the galaxy. Your soldiers train with methods that horrify our military observers. You treat warfare like it is both an art and a science. Sarah felt a chill. She was beginning to understand. This wasn't really about following rules or being peaceful. This was about fear. The council was afraid of what humanity might become. The speaker raised his staff again. Therefore, humanity has 6 months to remove all personnel from council space. All shared technologies must be returned or destroyed. All joint research projects are terminated immediately. All trade agreements are void. Admiral Rivera's laugh was bitter. You're making a mistake. You think getting rid of us will solve your problems, but we've been good allies, we've been honest partners. You might not get another chance to have humans on your side. The Kithari representative clicked nervously. Perhaps this is too harsh. Humans have contributed much to our civilization. But the Veltar speaker was unmoved. The decision is final. Humanity is too unpredictable, too aggressive, and too dangerous to remain in this alliance. Better to end this now, before your species becomes an even greater threat. Sarah looked around the chamber one last time. She memorized the faces of the species that had voted against humanity. The Mordak, who had been humanity's first alien contact. The Veltar, who had sponsored Earth's membership in the Council. The Zephyrians, who had traded technology freely with human scientists. All of them were now afraid of what their former allies might do. As the human delegation was escorted from the chamber, Sarah noticed something strange. Admiral Rivera wasn't arguing anymore. He wasn't protesting or pleading. He was watching everything with the calm attention of a military strategist. He was studying the chamber layout, counting security, guards, noting exit routes. Dr. Elena Vasquez, head of the Xenotechnology Division, walked beside them. She was quiet too, but Sarah could see her fingers moving slightly as if she was doing calculations in her head. Elena had always been brilliant with alien tech. She could look at any device and figure out not just how it worked, but how to make it work better. As they reached the exit, Admiral Rivera spoke quietly to Sarah. "Don't worry, Ambassador, this isn't over." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. Rivera smiled, and for the first time all day he looked genuinely pleased. "I mean, the Council just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They're giving us 6 months to prepare. They're sending us away from their oversight and their rules. They're giving us complete freedom to build whatever we want, however we want to build it." Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold corridors of the Council station. "Marcus, what are you thinking?" The Admiral's smile grew wider. "I'm thinking that humanity is about to get very creative, and the galaxy is about to learn why you should never back a human into a corner." As their ship pulled away from the Council station, Sarah looked back at the massive structure that had been humanity's home among the stars. They were leaving in disgrace, branded as too dangerous for civilized space. She wondered if the Council would ever realize that they had just turned humanity from an ally into something far more dangerous. They had just given humans a reason to prove exactly how dangerous they could be. The evacuation of humanity from Council space began 3 days after the vote. To outside observers, it looked like chaos. Hundreds of human ships moved frantically between colonies, research stations, and diplomatic outposts. Emergency broadcasts filled the communication channels. Families packed their belongings and prepared to abandon homes they had built over decades. But Admiral Rivera knew better. This wasn't chaos at all. It was the largest and most complex military operation in human history, and it was going exactly according to plan. "Operation Exodus is proceeding on schedule," reported Colonel James Park from the command center on Luna Base. "All Phase 1 objectives completed. We're moving to Phase 2 ahead of time." Rivera nodded as he studied the massive holographic display showing human positions throughout the galaxy. Red dots showed completed evacuations. Blue dots showed operations, still in progress. Green dots showed something the Council didn't know about. Hidden assets that weren't supposed to exist. The truth was, humanity had been preparing for this moment since their 3rd year in the Council. Not because they wanted to leave, but because they had learned to plan for every possibility. And humans were very good at planning for the worst. Dr. Elena Vasquez entered the command center carrying a sealed data case. Her usually neat hair was messy from days of non-stop work, but her eyes were bright with excitement. "Marcus, you need to see this." She activated a private hologram that showed technical specifications for dozens of devices. Rivera recognized some of them: fusion drives, AI cores, medical scanners, quantum computers. But the specifications were wrong. The performance numbers were far too high. "What am I looking at, Elena?" "The real story," she said with a grin. "For 15 years the Council has been sharing their technology with us. What they don't know is that we've been improving everything they gave us. Not just a little bit, dramatically." She pointed to a fusion drive schematic. "Their version produces 1,000 units of power. Our improved version produces 3,000 units with the same fuel consumption, and it's more reliable. Rivera felt his pulse quicken. How much more? Our drives can run continuously for 50 years without maintenance. Theirs need service every 5 years. Our AI systems process information at speeds that would crash their networks. Our medical technology can heal injuries that they consider fatal. Elena opened another file. But here's the real surprise. We've been doing more than just improving their technology. We've been combining it in ways they never thought of. Veltar communication systems integrated with Cathari processing power and human intuitive interfaces. The result is something completely new. Admiral Rivera stared at the data. Elena, are you telling me that humanity's technology is now superior to anything in the Council? Not just superior, Marcus. It's so far ahead that Council scientists would probably think our equipment is impossible. Remember, they believe in slow, careful progress over centuries. We believe in rapid innovation and bold experimentation. The gap between our approaches has created a gap in our capabilities. Rivera walked to the large window overlooking Luna's surface. Below, he could see the construction yards where humanity's new ships were being built. Ships designed with no Council oversight, no bureaucratic limitations, no requirements to follow proper procedures. Show me the ships, he said. Elena activated another hologram. The design that appeared was unlike anything in the galaxy. It was larger than Council battleships, but sleeker. It bristled with weapons that used principles the Council had banned as too dangerous. Most importantly, it could do something no other ship in the galaxy could do. It could build more ships. We're calling it the Prometheus class, Elena explained. It's part battleship, part factory, part research station, part colony ship. A single Prometheus can establish a complete industrial base on any world within 6 months. It can defend itself against entire fleets while simultaneously conducting scientific research and training new personnel. Rivera smiled. How many are we building? The first one launches next week. By the end of the year we'll have 12. By the end of the decade we'll have hundreds. A communication alert interrupted them. Admiral, came Colonel Park's voice. We're receiving a transmission from the Rim Territories. The Rim Territories, the outer edge of the galaxy where no civilized species bothered to settle. The space was full of dangerous phenomena, harsh environments, and difficult mining conditions. It was exactly where humanity was being forced to go. The transmission showed Captain Diana Walsh, one of Rivera's best officers, standing on the bridge of an exploration vessel. Behind her, through the viewports, Rivera could see a spectacular view of a purple nebula surrounding a cluster of young stars. Admiral, we've completed the survey of the outer reach sectors, Walsh reported. I have good news and better news. Let's hear it, Captain. The good news is that the Rim Territories are even richer than we hoped. The asteroid fields here contain more rare metals than anything in Council space. The energy output from these young star systems could power human civilization for millions of years. Rivera leaned forward. And the better news? Walsh grinned. The better news is that we're not alone out here. We've made contact with 17 different species that the Council has never heard of. They're all small civilizations, most of them, struggling to survive in these harsh conditions. But Admiral, some of their technologies are incredible. A new figure appeared on the transmission, a tall, thin being with silver skin and large black eyes. When it spoke, its voice was translated by human computers. I am Kyriel of the Nethys Commonwealth, the alien said. We have observed your species' arrival in the Rim Territories. Your technology appears familiar. Rivera raised an eyebrow. Familiar how? You build as we build. Fast, efficient, practical. Not slow and careful like the Council species. We have been alone for a long time, Admiral Rivera. Perhaps we do not have to be alone anymore. After the transmission ended, Rivera stood quietly for several minutes. Elena waited patiently beside him. Finally, the Admiral spoke. Elena, I want you to accelerate the Prometheus program. I want the first ship ready in 1 month, not next week. Sir, that's impossible. We need at least make it possible, Rivera interrupted. Because I think we're about to discover that getting kicked out of the Council was the best thing that ever happened to humanity. Elena looked confused. How do you figure that? Rivera turned to face her, and she was surprised to see that he was smiling. Not the grim smile of a soldier preparing for war, but the excited smile of an explorer about to discover something wonderful. Think about it, Elena. For 15 years we've been trying to fit into their system, following their rules, respecting their boundaries, being careful not to offend them. All that time we've been holding ourselves back. He gestured toward the Rim Territories on the star chart. But out there are no council rules, no regulations about what technology we can develop, no committees to approve our research, no votes on whether our methods are too aggressive or too fast. Elena began to understand. You're saying we're free. I'm saying we're finally free to be human, Rivera confirmed. Free to innovate as fast as we can think. Free to build whatever we can imagine. Free to make allies with anyone who wants to work with us instead of just the species the Council approves of. He pointed to the data showing human improvements to Council technology. They were afraid of what we might become if left unchecked. Well, they're about to find out. Because we're going to build something out there that they never imagined. Elena looked at the specifications for the Prometheus ships, then at the star chart showing the vast territories of the galactic rim. What exactly are we going to build, Marcus? Admiral Rivera's smile became predatory. We're going to build an empire, Elena. Not the kind built on conquest and fear like the old Earth empires, but an empire built on the things humans do best. Innovation, adaptation, and the ability to turn any disadvantage into an advantage. Outside the window, the first completed sections of the Prometheus ships gleamed under the lights of the construction yards. Soon, those ships would carry humanity into the unknown regions of the galaxy. The Council had expelled humanity because they were afraid of human potential. They were about to discover that their worst fears hadn't been nearly ambitious enough. 25 years had passed since humanity's expulsion from the Galactic Council. Captain Diana Walsh stood on the bridge of the HSV Prometheus, watching through the massive viewport as her ship approached the Kepler mining complex. What she saw would have amazed any Council observer. The asteroid field that had once been empty space was now home to thousands of structures. Massive mining platforms carved metal from floating rocks the size of cities. Factory ships assembled new vessels while research stations conducted experiments that would have horrified Council scientists with their dangerous scope. Transport ships moved between installations in constant streams, carrying raw materials, finished goods, and personnel. But most impressive of all were the defense platforms, sleek, deadly constructions that could destroy entire fleets while barely drawing power from the main reactors. Each platform was armed with weapons based on human improvements to technologies from a dozen different species. Admiral Rivera would be proud, commented Commander Sarah Kim, Walsh's second-in-command. When we started this project, people called it impossible. Walsh smiled. People have been calling human projects impossible for centuries. We just ignore them and build things anyway. The Prometheus was the flagship of humanity's new fleet, and it represented everything the Council had feared about human engineering. The ship was 3 times larger than the biggest Council vessel, but it moved faster than their smallest scouts. Its hull was made from alloys that combined Veltar crystalline technology with Cathari biometals and human carbon fiber techniques. The result was armor that could survive hits that would vaporize Council ships. But the Prometheus wasn't just a warship. As Walsh had learned over the years, it was something entirely new. A mobile city capable of establishing colonies, conducting research, manufacturing equipment, and defending itself against any threat. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the surface, reported Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. The main screen showed the face of Dr. Elena Vasquez, now Director of Human Technology Development. Behind her, Walsh could see the sprawling laboratories of New Geneva Station, built inside a hollowed-out asteroid that had been transformed into humanity's primary research facility. Diana. Good to see you, Elena said warmly. I assume you're here for the demonstration? Wouldn't miss it for anything, Walsh replied. Is the new prototype ready? Elena's grin was answer enough. Come down to Lab 7, you're going to love this. An hour later, Walsh stood in the laboratory looking at something that shouldn't have existed. The device was barely the size of a briefcase, but according to Elena's specifications, it contained enough processing power to run the computers of an entire Council fleet. It's based on quantum processors from the Altarians, organic neural networks from the Nethys, and human intuitive programming, Elena explained. But we've integrated them in a way that creates something completely new. Watch this. She activated the device. Immediately, holographic displays filled the room with complex calculations, star charts, tactical analyses, and resource projections. The speed of the data processing was incredible. This single unit can coordinate the movements of 1,000 ships, plan the colonization of 50 worlds, and conduct scientific research that would take Council computers decades to complete, Elena said proudly. And it does it all while using less power than their basic communication systems. Walsh shook her head in amazement. Elena, this is incredible, but it's also going to terrify them. Good, said a familiar voice from the laboratory entrance. Walsh turned to see Admiral Rivera, now much older but still carrying himself with military precision. Fear makes people careful. Careful people make mistakes. Rivera approached the quantum computer display. How many of these can we build? As many as we want, Elena replied. The materials are common, the manufacturing process is automated, and we have 17 different species helping us improve the design. The Guthrie contributed crystalline storage matrices. The Vorth added biological processing elements. The Kirith developed new power systems. Walsh was impressed but not surprised. In 25 years, humanity had encountered dozens of species in the Rim territories. Unlike the Council races, these species were struggling to survive in harsh conditions. They understood the value of cooperation and rapid innovation. More importantly, they weren't afraid of human improvements to their technology. When humans took Guthrie crystal growing techniques and made them 10 times faster, the Guthrie were delighted. When humans combined Vorth biotechnology with human medical knowledge to create healing systems that could regenerate entire limbs, the Vorth called it a miracle. Admiral, Walsh said, we've been out here for 2.5 decades. Our territory now spans 3 spiral arms. We have allies the Council has never heard of, technology they can't imagine, and resources that dwarf their entire civilization. When do we make contact? Rivera was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. Soon, Diana. Very soon. But first, I want you to see something. He led them to a secured section of the laboratory, where a massive holographic display showed the current state of human space. The image was breathtaking. Red dots showed human colonies now numbering in the thousands. Blue lines showed trade routes connecting hundreds of systems. Green markers indicated allied species, 43 different civilizations that had joined humanity's growing confederation. But most impressive was the yellow overlay showing industrial capacity. Humanity's Rim territories now produced more ships, more weapons, more technology, and more resources than the entire Galactic Council. The Council expelled us because they were afraid we would become too powerful, Rivera said quietly. They were right to be afraid, but they made one crucial mistake. What mistake? Walsh asked. They thought they could control the outcome by getting rid of us, but all they did was give us the freedom to become everything they feared we might be. He zoomed the display to show the borders between human space and Council space. Our scouts have been watching them for years. They're stagnating, Diana. Their technology hasn't improved significantly in decades. Their economy is struggling because they refuse to embrace efficient methods. Their military is using the same tactics they used a century ago. Elena nodded. Meanwhile, we've been growing exponentially. Every year we get stronger, faster, smarter. Every year we incorporate new species and new ideas into our confederation. And every year, Rivera added, the gap between us and them gets larger. Walsh studied the display. The comparison was striking. Council space looked static, unchanging, locked into ancient patterns. Human space looked dynamic, constantly growing and evolving. What's our next move? She asked. Rivera's expression became serious. Tomorrow, you're taking the Prometheus on a special mission. You're going to pay a visit to the Council borders. Walsh felt her pulse quicken. Are we talking about invasion? No, Rivera said with a slight smile. We're talking about a diplomatic mission. It's time to let the Council know that humanity didn't just survive their exile. It's time to show them what we've become. He pointed to a system near the Council border. The Veltar have a research station there. They've been having problems with pirates from the outer systems. Pirates using ships and weapons they don't recognize. Walsh understood immediately. Ships and weapons that came from species allied with us? Exactly. The Council is starting to realize that there are civilizations out here they never knew about. Civilizations that are now part of something much larger than they imagined. Elena laughed. They're going to be so surprised. Surprised is one word for it, Rivera agreed. Terrified might be more accurate. When they expelled us, they thought they were getting rid of a minor irritation. They're about to discover they've been dealing with the advanced scouts of an empire. Walsh looked at the quantum computer, still processing data at impossible speeds. She thought about the Prometheus, with its impossible combination of technologies from dozens of species. She considered humanity's allies, species the Council had never heard of but who commanded technologies that would revolutionize galactic civilization. Admiral, she said slowly, I think the Council is about to learn why you should never underestimate humans. Rivera nodded. They thought our biggest weakness was that we were too ambitious, too innovative, too willing to break the rules. They're about to find out that those weren't weaknesses at all. Outside the laboratory windows, Walsh could see human ships moving between the stars, ships carrying human crews and alien allies, equipped with impossible technology, heading toward destinations the Council couldn't imagine. The species that had been deemed too dangerous for civilized space was about to remind the galaxy exactly why that assessment had been correct. The first sign of humanity's return came from the border systems. Council patrol ships started reporting strange encounters with vessels of unknown design. The ships appeared without warning, scanned Council installations with equipment that penetrated even military-grade shielding, then vanished before defensive systems could respond. Commander Zektar of the Veltar Border Guard filed the same report for the 5th time in 2 months. Unknown vessels continue to probe our sensor networks. Ships appear to use stealth technology beyond our current understanding. All attempts at communication have been ignored. The Council's response was predictable. They increased patrols, upgraded sensor systems, and issued warnings about unauthorized vessels in Council space. But the ghost ships continued their mysterious activities, always staying just out of reach. What the Council didn't realize was that these weren't random encounters. Captain Diana Walsh was conducting the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history. The Prometheus and her sister ships had spent 6 months mapping every Council installation, analyzing their defenses, studying their technology, and assessing their capabilities. The results were exactly what Admiral Rivera had expected. They haven't changed at all, Walsh reported during a secure transmission to Earth Command. Same ship designs they used 20 years ago, same weapons, same shields, same tactics. They're completely static. Admiral Rivera studied the intelligence, reports from his office on Luna Base. His hair was now completely white, and his face showed the lines of age, but his mind was as sharp as ever. What about their economy? Struggling, Walsh replied. Trade routes are inefficient because they refuse to upgrade their transportation systems. Manufacturing is slow because they won't adopt automated techniques. They're actually producing fewer ships now than they were when we left. Rivera wasn't surprised. The Council's obsession with careful, slow progress had always been their weakness. While humanity and their allies had been innovating at incredible speeds, the Council had been following the same old procedures. Any signs they know about our empire? Rivera asked. They're starting to get worried about reports from the Rim territories, Walsh said. Apparently some of their deep space explorers have encountered our allied species. The descriptions of Nethys technology and Gathri manufacturing capabilities have their scientists very confused. Rivera smiled grimly. I bet they are. Are you ready for the next phase? Walsh nodded. All systems ready, Admiral. This is going to be quite a shock. The next day, the annual gathering of the Galactic Council was proceeding exactly as it had for the past century. Representatives from 47 species sat in the Great Chamber, debating trade regulations and territorial boundaries with mind-numbing predictability. The Veltar speaker was in the middle of a lengthy presentation about patrol schedules when every sensor in the chamber began screaming alerts. The massive displays showed something impossible. A ship had just appeared in the center of the Council system without triggering a single early warning device. The ship that materialized on the screens was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of their largest vessels, but its design was elegant rather than bulky. The hull gleamed with what appeared to be living metal that shifted colors as it moved. Most disturbing of all, it was broadcasting on frequencies the Council didn't recognize, using encryption methods they couldn't decode. Panic spread through the chamber as military commanders tried to understand how such a massive ship had appeared undetected. Their most advanced sensors should have spotted anything that large from light years away. Then the ship sent a transmission on standard Council frequencies. The face that appeared on the main screen was human, but the woman wore a uniform unlike anything the Council remembered. Captain Diana Walsh, now Admiral Walsh, looked older and more confident than when she had left 25 years earlier. Greetings, Galactic Council, she said with a slight smile. This is Admiral Diana Walsh of the Human Confederacy. I am here to request a diplomatic audience to discuss new territorial boundaries and trade agreements. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions, military officers demanded explanations, and the Veltar speaker struggled to maintain order. When silence finally returned, his first words revealed the depth of their shock. Humans? But you were expelled from our space. You were ordered to withdraw beyond the Rim territories. How do you possess such advanced vessels? Walsh's expression didn't change. We did withdraw beyond the Rim territories as ordered. What? We found there was quite interesting. She activated a holographic display that filled the chamber with star charts. The Council representatives stared in growing horror as the scope of humanity's expansion became clear. The territories they had dismissed as worthless wastelands were now marked with thousands of human installations. 25 years ago, you expelled humanity because you considered us too dangerous for civilized space, Walsh continued. You were concerned about our rapid technological advancement and our unconventional military tactics. I'm here to inform you that your concerns were well-founded. The Cathari representative, clicking nervously, managed to speak. Admiral Walsh, your ship. It incorporates technologies we do not recognize. How is this possible? Simple, Walsh replied. While the Council has been maintaining the status quo, humanity has been exploring, learning, and growing. The rim territories you considered empty were actually home to 43 different species. Species with remarkable technologies and a strong interest in cooperation. She highlighted several systems on the star chart. The Nethys developed quantum processing systems that make your computers look like primitive calculators. The Gathri created manufacturing techniques that can build entire fleets in weeks rather than years. The Vorth discovered biotechnology applications that can heal injuries you consider fatal. The Zephyrian delegate's voice was barely a whisper. You allied with unknown species? We didn't just ally with them, Walsh said proudly. We integrated our civilizations. We shared our technologies freely and learned from theirs. We created something entirely new, a confederacy based on mutual benefit and rapid innovation. Admiral Rivera's image appeared beside Walsh's on the transmission. Though he looked older, his presence still commanded respect. Honorable Council members, humanity has no desire for conflict. We are here to establish formal relations between our civilizations. The Veltar speaker found his voice. Admiral Rivera, your presence here violates the terms of your expulsion. You were ordered never to return to Council space. Rivera's smile was cold. Those terms were negotiated when humanity was a single species with limited resources. The situation has changed significantly. Another hologram activated showing industrial capacity comparisons. The numbers were staggering. Humanity's confederacy now controlled more resources than the entire Galactic Council. Their manufacturing capacity was 10 times larger. Their technological advancement had accelerated to rates the Council considered impossible. This is not possible, whispered the Mordak representative. No civilization could achieve such growth in 25 years. No Council civilization could achieve such growth, Walsh corrected. But we're not a Council civilization anymore. We're something new. We're a confederation that values innovation over tradition, cooperation over hierarchy, and results over procedures. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The species they had expelled as too dangerous had become more powerful than all of them combined. Worse, they had done it by embracing the very qualities the Council had found threatening. The Altarian delegate, one of the few species that had opposed humanity's expulsion, spoke carefully. What are your intentions toward Council space? Rivera's expression softened slightly. Our intentions are peaceful, but they are also non-negotiable. The galaxy has changed, whether the Council recognizes it or not. Your choice is simple: adapt to the new reality or be left behind by it. Walsh added, we're offering the Council an opportunity to join the modern galaxy. Trade agreements that will revitalize your economies. Technology transfers that will advance your civilizations by centuries. Cultural exchanges that will benefit everyone. And if we refuse? Asked the Veltar speaker. Rivera's answer chilled the chamber. Then you continue on your current path while the rest of the galaxy moves forward without you. Your choice. The transmission ended, leaving the Council chamber in stunned silence. Outside, through the great windows, they could see the impossible. Human ship hanging in space like a promise of things to come. The species that had been deemed too dangerous for galactic civilization had returned. But they hadn't come back as supplicants seeking readmission to the Council. They had come back as the leaders of something far greater than the Council had ever imagined. The old order was ending, whether the Council was ready or not. The only question now was whether they would be part of the new one humanity was creating, or watch it develop from the outside as history passed them by. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council faced a choice that might determine the fate of their entire civilization. The negotiations took place on neutral ground, a space station in the buffer zone between Council space and the human confederacy. The station itself told the story of how much had changed. Built by human engineering teams in just 6 months, it incorporated technologies from dozens of species and provided facilities that amazed even veteran diplomats. Admiral Marcus Rivera, now in his 80s but still sharp as a blade, sat across from the same Veltar speaker who had expelled humanity 25 years earlier. The alien looked older too, his blue-green skin now marked with the darker patches that indicated advanced age among his species. Between them sat representatives from both civilizations, but the balance of power was obvious. The council delegation looked tired, worried, and overwhelmed. The Human Confederacy delegation radiated confidence and energy. "Let me understand your proposal," the Veltar speaker said slowly. "You want us to abandon our traditional governmental structure, open all our technologies for unrestricted sharing, and accept your allied species as equal members of a new galactic organization." President Lisa Chang, humanity's new leader, nodded calmly. "That's essentially correct. The alternative is watching your civilizations slowly decline, while the rest of the galaxy moves forward without you." She activated a holographic display showing economic projections. The data was stark and undeniable. Council worlds were experiencing declining birth rates, reduced innovation, failing infrastructure, and social stagnation. Meanwhile, Confederacy worlds showed explosive growth in every category. "Your rigid caste systems discourage innovation," Dr. Elena Vasquez explained. "Your bureaucratic approval processes slowed technological development to a crawl. Your fear of change has made change your enemy." The Cathari representative clicked his mandibles nervously. "Dr. Vasquez, our systems have maintained peace and stability for millennia. How can you call that failure?" Elena's response was gentle but devastating. "Because peace without growth is not stability, it's slow death. Your populations are declining because your young people have no hope of improving their situations. Your economies are stagnating because you punish innovation. Your military technology is centuries behind ours because you're afraid of weapons that might actually work." Admiral Rivera leaned forward. 25 years ago you expelled us because you were afraid of what humanity might become. You were right to be afraid, but you were wrong about how to handle that fear." The Zephyrian delegate spoke in her wind chime, voicing, "What do you mean, Admiral?" "You tried to solve the problem by getting rid of us," Rivera explained. "But the real problem wasn't humanity. The real problem was that your civilizations had stopped evolving. We were just the symptom that made you notice the disease." President Chang activated another display showing the structure of the Human Confederacy. Instead of the rigid hierarchies the Council preferred, the Confederacy was organized as a dynamic network where species, worlds, and individuals could rise based on merit and contribution. "Look at our allied species," Chang said. "The Nethys were struggling with resource shortages when we found them. Now they're leaders in quantum technology development. The Gathri were barely surviving in asteroid mining operations. Now they run the most efficient manufacturing systems in the galaxy. The Vorth had been isolated for centuries because other species found their biotechnology disturbing," added Admiral Walsh, who had joined the negotiations via quantum communication. "Now their medical advances are saving millions of lives across 40 different species." The Council representatives shifted uncomfortably. They all knew about their own declining populations, failing economies, and social problems. But admitting that humanity's dangerous approach might actually be superior was almost impossible. The Altarian delegate, who had always been more open-minded, spoke carefully. "What guarantees do we have that joining your confederacy won't simply result in human domination?" Rivera smiled. "The same guarantee we gave to every other species that joined us. The opportunity to prove what you're capable of when you're not held back by artificial limitations." He gestured to the other human representatives. Admiral Walsh started as a junior captain. Dr. Vasquez was just a xenotechnology researcher. President Chang was a colony administrator. None of them inherited their positions or were appointed by committees. They earned their roles through competence and results. "The same principle applies to species," Chang added. "The Kirith now lead our exploration programs because they're the best at it. The Durnaki run our diplomatic corps because they have natural talent for understanding different cultures. The Gathri dominate manufacturing because they revolutionized the entire process." Elena leaned forward. "The question isn't whether humans will dominate the Confederacy. The question is what each species, including humanity, can contribute to something greater than any of us could achieve alone." The Veltar speaker was quiet for a long time. Finally he spoke. "What you're proposing would fundamentally change our entire civilization. Our social structures, our governments, our ways of thinking. Everything would have to change." "Yes," Rivera said simply. "That's exactly what we're proposing. But what if we're not capable of such change? What if our species aren't adaptable enough?" President Chang's expression softened. "With respect, Honorable Speaker, you're already changing whether you realize it or not. Your young people are leaving Council worlds to seek opportunities in Confederacy space. Your best scientists are emigrating because they can't get approval for their research projects. Your most innovative companies are relocating to human space because they can't compete under council restrictions. She activated another display showing migration patterns. The data was sobering. Over the past decade, millions of council citizens had quietly moved to Confederacy worlds, seeking opportunities their home systems couldn't provide. You can try to maintain your old systems, Chang continued, but eventually you'll run out of people who want to live under them. The negotiations continued for 3 weeks. The council representatives struggled with concepts that challenged everything they believed about civilization, government, and progress, but gradually, the reality of their situation became impossible to deny. Their civilizations were dying slowly, while humanity's confederation was exploding with life, energy, and growth. Their technology was stagnant, while human allies were achieving breakthroughs every month. Their young people were leaving for human space in ever-increasing numbers. The final agreement was signed by President Chang and 38 of the council species. 9 species chose to maintain their independence and continue their traditional approaches. They were allowed to do so, with the understanding that the offer to join would remain open. 6 months later, President Chang stood before the first assembly of the Galactic Confederacy. The chamber was larger and more diverse than the old council hall, accommodating representatives from 93 different species. The atmosphere was electric with possibility. Citizens of the galaxy, she began, we gather today not as separate species protecting our individual territories, but as partners in the greatest experiment in galactic history. We are building a civilization based on the radical idea that anyone, regardless of origin, can improve their situation through effort and innovation. In the audience, Admiral Rivera smiled as he watched species that had been enemies for centuries working together on joint projects. The rigid caste systems of the old council had been replaced by merit-based advancement. The bureaucratic approval processes had been streamlined to encourage innovation rather than stifle it. Most remarkably, the fear that had dominated galactic politics for millennia was being replaced by excitement about the future. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now Director of Confederacy Scientific Development, presented the Assembly's first major project, a joint exploration mission to the galactic core, where ancient mysteries waited for species brave enough and innovative enough to solve them. This mission represents everything our Confederacy stands for, she announced. Ships built with technologies from 12 species, crewed by volunteers from 50 worlds, exploring regions that our ancestors considered impossible to reach. The mission launched a year later. The fleet was led by the HSV Prometheus, now upgraded with the latest Confederacy technologies. Captain Walsh, promoted to Fleet Admiral, commanded a force that represented the best of galactic civilization. As the ships departed for the galactic core, President Chang watched from the observation deck of New Geneva Station. Beside her stood Admiral Rivera, now retired but still serving as an advisor. Do you think the council ever imagined this when they expelled us? Chang asked. Rivera chuckled. They were afraid we would become too dangerous if left unchecked. They never imagined we would become something better. What do you think they would say if they could see us now? Rivera considered the question as he watched the mixed crews of humans and aliens preparing their ships for the journey ahead. I think they would realize that their greatest fear came true. We did become everything they thought we might be. We just proved that what they feared was actually what the galaxy needed. The ships disappeared into hyperspace, carrying the hopes and dreams of 93 species toward mysteries that had waited millions of years to be solved.